Okay, what should I do today? Oh, make YouTube video on Tuesday. Wait a minute, I don't have anything in... What am I gonna do? Oh, I got an idea. Okay. Let's do this. Hey everyone, I am back from Teen Serve. Yup, painting houses and carrying heavy things. Back here today with my 20 subs special, a review of Spider-Man Homecoming. Yup, I just love this movie so much. I really liked it. Some could even say it was amazing. Get it? Okay, let's just get on with it. Starting out with the plot. So this movie starts out with right after the New York incident from the Avengers, where Adrian Toomes, is that how you pronounce that? Is it that or Toomes? Anyway, let's just go with Toomes. Adrian Toomes is with his group and collecting stuff from the cleaning up stuff from the Chitauri invasion when they get kicked out by Tony Stark's new damage control. They rarely resent that, and Adrian Toomes decides to keep some of the technology they got and were supposed to turn into them. And as he says, the world's changing. Time we change too. So it jumps forward 8 years. That's actually a plot hole. I'm like, 8 years? The Avengers took place in 2012, didn't it? Unless it all happened in 2008 or 9, then this timeline is really messed up. Okay, so it jumps ahead 8 years to Civil War, where Tony Stark sorry Tony Stark employs Peter Parker for the fighting in Germany and gives him his new suit, which he's like, this is the greatest thing ever. So Peter Parker starts recording himself as Spider-Man and records himself fighting Captain America in the iconic airport battle and stuff like that. And then when it finally gets to him to stop recording, he is in a car with Tony Stark, and Stark says that he could keep the suit, but does not mean he's an Avenger yet, and tells him to just stay on the ground, as he says, which means just save people from thefts and stuff like that. So 2 months later, Spider-Man is in high school and having his own dramas with his best friend Ned Leeds, his crush Liz, and just a random student named Michelle. And so Spider-Man thinks that he could be doing more with his heroic career than just saving people from thefts and stuff like that. So he stops an armed robbery of people with the Avengers masks that we saw in the trailer with the high-tech weapons, and it causes destruction everywhere. So Spider-Man feels like he should be the one stopping the people making these weapons. So he eventually he comes back to his apartment where his best friend Ned Leeds is building the Death Star and his Lego Death Star. And has this really funny moment where Peter is unmasked as Spider-Man in front of him, and he just drops the Death Star that he just finished. So, now Ned knows that Peter is Spider-Man, and the next day he almost, reveals that he knows by saying that Peter knows Spider-Man. So, apparently, also, Liz has a crush on Spider-Man. So, that's why Ned tells her. And, then she invites Ned and Peter to her party, where she asked Peter to, ask Spider-Man to make a special appearance. So they do that, and Michelle kind of flicks Peter off. That was a funny moment. So, Peter, while trying to act as Spider-Man for the special appearance, he sees a giant explosion in the distance, and so he decides to ditch the party and go to there. And they make this really funny joke where if there are no trees or anything for Spider-Man to swing on, he just has to walk because he was in the middle of a golf place. It was really funny. Anyway, so he gets to the robbers, which is the first Shocker, played by Logan Marshall Green, Aaron Davis, played by Donald Glover, and the second Shocker, Herman Schultz, who I do not remember who his play is. They embark in a chase inside a van, and while they're shooting weapons at Spidey, he eventually does get a power source that they dropped. So they all get back to Adrian Toomis. The robbers, actually no, Adrian helps out the robbers in his vulture suit and almost drowns Peter. And if it wasn't for Iron Man's suit, who is kind of autopiloted, Spider-Man would be dead. So then Liz gets mad at Peter for not arriving at the party and not having Spider-Man there. And there's this really funny moment where excuse me, this isn't my best day right now. So then Peter and Ned and a bunch of the students go to DC for this special test thing, and Peter thinks that because they're going to DC, he could help them out. Not help them, he could find the villain's lair, which he found out is in DC. So he does that and finds some of the villains, while Ned turns off his training wheels protocol for his suit, which turns on the Jarvis-like AI, which he later names Karen. So he finds some villains, and there's this really funny moment where he's messing around with his web shooters, and he wants to swing, but instead it's kind of a rapid fire web, so he just falls on his face. And so he's like, "What was that? What happened?" And Karen's just like, "You jumped and fell on your face." That was a really funny moment. It's not very funny with me describing it, but if you saw the movie, you would think it was funny. So he eventually does sneak into the villain's van, which they were in when he found him, and he kind of follows them stealthily. He also happens to find a Vulture who is trying to steal some weaponry, which is being transported to an Avengers facility. But he stops that, but gets trapped in the van, knocked out overnight. and he finds himself in the facility where he cannot get out, so he is just lying around talking to the AI, which at that point he names Karen. So eventually the doors do open for him in the morning, and he goes to the place where all his fellow students are, which who all just won the thing they came to DC for. So they were going up the elevator of the Washington Monument, where the thing Peter found that the villains stole in the original van chase, which is a Chitauri bomb or whatever, explodes and traps the students in an elevator, which they all try to get out, but if it wasn't for Spider-Man, Liz would probably be dead falling down the elevator. So Spider-Man saves her and a bunch of the other people by climbing up the Washington Monument and then just breaking through the glass window there. But it was really hard to glass, so he had a little trouble breaking through. Sorry. So he eventually does save them, and then he kind of fights the Vulture. No, not wrong part. So he also gets to a ferry boat, which he tracked a bunch of villains to, like the Shocker, Mac Gargan, who will become important later, and Adrian Toomes. I think that's how you pronounce it, yeah. So he fights a bunch of those crooks, but Toomes becomes the Vulture and causes a lot of destruction while Peter's trying to stop him. And eventually, Toomes' Chitauri gun, which he has, splits the ferry in half, so Toomes gets away while Peter tries to save all the people on the ferry by trying to web the ferry together again. But most of his web fails and breaks, so he just tries to do it by holding the two webs together. But then Iron Man comes and pushes the ferry together, and he's kind of mad at Spidey because he disobeys orders. And they kind of has this talk where Peter says that he was just trying to be like him, and Iron Man just says he wanted him to be better. Then takes away his suit, which he then says, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. Then Peter just gives him the suit, and he's kind of troubled by this. So he decides to go to a homecoming dance with Liz, which is also happening at that point. And he decides to just pick her up at her house, which, by surprise, the Adrian Toomes opens the door to her house. And then he says that Toomes is Liz's father. Yeah, that was a really brilliant plot twist. Yeah, when I was in the theater and that was revealed, the entire theater gasped, and I think one person dropped their drink. And so anyway, on the way to the school, Toomes figures out that Peter's Spider-Man by some things that Liz says, that he wasn't at the Washington thing and kind of also bailed at her party. So Toomes just thinks about that for a little bit and then discovers that it was Peter. And so when they get there, he has a little talk with Peter about how he doesn't want his business to be messed with, because if he does, he will kill Peter and everyone he loves. Like, don't mess with me, or I will kill you, or everyone you love. So Peter dances a little with Liz, but then he finds out that Toomis is going to rob a jet that Happy is sending to a Avengers facility with a bunch of stuff like the Hulkbuster armor, prototype for Captain America's new shield, and Thor's magical belt. He's moving all of this stuff out of Avengers Tower because apparently someone else bought the tower. I'm pretty sure it was the Fantastic Four, but that's just me. So then Peter goes to stop the Vulture, who just got in and is redirecting the path to... who's redirecting the plane's path so it can go to his place, but he and Peter have an epic fight on the plane where a bunch of the engines go out and Peter has to try and land it at a safe place. So he does land it near the carnival where they have another epic fight. Actually, I forgot a part. Before all that, Peter goes to Adrian Toomis's lair and has a little talk with him where he's trying to get him to understand that the big and powerful, they don't care about the little guys like us. And he has his vulture wings to kind of make the ceiling fall down onto Peter, which he is kind of suffocating, and he can't get the thing off of him, so he just yells, "Help! Help! Someone!" But that doesn't work, so he just thinks about the line Tony told him. If you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. And that ultimately makes him strong enough to lift the building off of him. And so then, yada yada yada, he goes to the Vulture, tries to fight him on the jet. A bunch of engines fall. He falls on near the carnival. I already said this. And so he finally fights Vulture with another epic fight where Spider-Man's about to be defeated, and the Vulture's wings are really damaged. And so he tries to fly away with a bunch of Iron Man's arc reactors, but his wings kind of explode, but he doesn't die from that. Peter saves him from that and just ties him up near some of the wreckage so that Happy, Hogan, and a bunch of the Stark employee damage control or whatever can find him. So then they find out that, and Peter finds out that Liz is moving someplace else because of the whole thing with her father and all that. And so Peter's kind of burned up about this. But then Tony Stark has Peter come to the Avengers compound where he wants to make Peter a part of the Avengers and shows him the Iron Spider suit. But even though Peter wanted this the whole movie, he maturely turns it down. He just thinks he could stay on the ground for a little while longer. And Tony said that, yeah, sorry about that, my mother wanted me to do something real quick. So, as I was saying, Tony said that there was a lot of reporters and people behind a door, and that if Peter said yes to the Avengers joining thing, he would go behind the door and announce that to the crowd. But Peter turned it down, and Tony said it was just a... Peter asked if it was just a test, and Tony said yeah. But in all reality, it was not a test. He did not plan for Peter to say no. And so Pepper Potts appears from the back of the door, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, which I really did not expect. And she's like, what are you going to do? I have a lot of people behind here waiting for a special announcement. And so he just decides, He asks Happy if he still has a ring he got earlier, and he just decides to propose to Pepper. And then Peter gets back to his apartment. He sees that there is a bag that says, "This belongs to you, Tony Stark." And in the bag, believe it or not, is the Spider-Man suit that Tony took away. And so, Peter, puts the suit on, but then takes his mask off. And right in front of Aunt May, who is in the doorway. And then she almost drops an F-bomb, but before she can do so, the credits roll. That was really funny. And then, then the mid-credit scene is that the Vulture is in jail, where, and he's about to be prosecuted when he runs into Mac Gargan, who in the comics is the Scorpion, and later becomes Venom. And he says that Mac Gargan asks Toomis if he knows who Spider-Man really is, but then Toomis replies, "If I did, he'd be dead by now," which meant that he denied he knew who it was. So then Mac Gargan says that he has friends on the outside, which could possibly lead to the Sinister Six in the MCU. But then the post-credits scene is just a really troll moment, as Captain America PDA, which is a thing they used in the school for like the gym and stuff like that. And Captain America explains about how great it is for patience, and how you could wait for something that could be really great, but then it just leads to disappointment. It was a really troll moment about those post-credit scenes. So then, so the plot's all the way. Let's get to the characters. So Spider-Man is as funny as always. He's just his sarcastic self, and is just really funny. And he just wanted to be an Avenger for most of the movie. He thought that he could be doing more. But then at the end, after his battle with the Vulture, he sees that he is not ready yet. And then there's Iron Man, who's not really in the movie that much. He's probably in the movie for like 10 minutes tops. And he believes Peter isn't ready yet from the start. And he's just during the movie he's actually not really in the movie that much. Then there's also Happy Hogan, who is Peter's what's the word? Peter's kind of mentor. No, that's Tony. What's the word? Peter's let's just say it's Peter's kind of half boss. And then there's his best friend Ned Leeds, who is the typical kind of dumb best friend. I say he's kind of dumb because he almost reveals who Spider-Man really is a couple times. And then there's also Liz, who's your typical main character's crush, who's also kind of developed as a character, along with Ned. Then there's the amazing villain, the Vulture. He's probably the best villain Marvel has had in a long time. And the best part about him is, he doesn't die at the end. Yay! So he's probably going to appear again down the road in like Spider-Man 2 or 3. Then there's also the other villains, the Tinkerer and the Shocker. There's actually two Shockers, but one of them gets killed off early on, which is Logan Marshall Green's. Kind of gets disintegrated by the Vulture by accident. Well, not by accident, he just I used the wrong gun. He wanted to use Vulture wanted to use an anti-gravity gun on him, but instead he used a disintegration gun, which he was kind of shocked by. Shocked. There's also the other Shocker, who's Herman Schultz. He also isn't in the movie too much, but the time he has, I kind of liked him. There was also the Tinkerer, who is basically the brains behind all this. He made all the technology from the that the Vulture and the Shocker are using. Sorry, I can't talk today. And he's also kind of funny at times. Oh, and Logan Marshall Green's character I didn't really like. There's also Donald Glover's character Aaron Davis, who is the uncle of Miles Morales. Who he also mentions during the movie that he has a nephew living in New York. Oh, I forgot to mention this one scene where Spider-Man's trying to interrogate him where the Vulture is. He has this really deep voice. He uses this really deep voice. And, sorry. And Aaron Davis, notes that that's not what he really sounds like. He knows what a girl sounds like. And then Spider-Man's like, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy, I mean a man. It was just a really funny scene. And I think that's about all for the characters. Well, there was a kind of cameo by Betty Brant, who works at the Daily Bugle, but for now it's just in high school. It's just a reporter for the high school news. And the CG does not look that the CG does not look that fake. Well, does not look fake most of the time. I mean, it kind of looked a little fake when Peter was trying to lift the building off of him, but it was some of the most top-notch CG I've seen. And that is about it. If you liked this video, make sure to punch the like button in the face. Subscribe to my Luigi the Hedgehog 28 for more movie reviews. And next week, I don't know what I'm actually doing. So, I'll see you then when I actually think of something. Toodles!